No, please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Okay. So it is not coming. Sound is not coming.
This meeting is being recorded.
Your sound is still not coming here.
Is it working now?
Yeah, now it's coming. It's coming.
Okay, so I'm not using the headphone.
Okay, now.
Okay, I don't know what was the issue. Okay, so today finally, and today is my final talk, and what I promised you to do in the beginning, and I sort of, in my view, I gave you some of the, the ingredients of that theoretical connections. And over the last few days, I think Robert has also nicely taken us through the conceptual ideas of RRI, where now I'm in a position to discuss the possibilities of a dialogue between the RRI and the fuel innovation. I will have to share my screen. Give me a minute. Why is it not it coming? Oh. See why the screen itself is not coming.
Sorry for the technical issues with Dr. Saradindu. He will come back again. He'll joining soon.
Is it coming now?
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, okay. So, but I still cannot see the screen. But can you?
Yeah, it's not.
It's not coming?
No, not in full screen.
Not full screen. Okay. Yeah, that maybe. Is it not full screen?
Go to slideshow.
Yes, I am. Yeah, is it coming now? Is it coming now?
Not yet, but it will come.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I stop share and then I share it again. Better? Should I send it to you?
Yeah, you can send it.
So let me just send it to you. Sent you. Okay, let me focus on the thing that I want to discuss. Thank you, Anu. So the basic point here is to think about the possibilities of having a dialogue between frugal innovation and the RRI. Now the question is, why should there be a dialogue? What is the objective that we want to fulfill by having a dialogue? Well, first, of course, is to an extent the common concerns that they share about being inclusive in developing innovation, about giving voices to different groups of or the stakeholders in in making socially relevant innovation, and in particular the way they wanted to come out of the some of the weaknesses of the orthodox or the more conventional innovation discourse, which was like more top down, more authoritative, and more centralized. Now, it is also necessary that we therefore have a dialogue between these two or maybe other such converging narratives of what is called an alternative understanding in the innovation, in the domain of innovation studies, so that we have a more comprehensive account of how does that alternative, the so-called more democratic narrative, look like. But at the same time, the dialogue is also difficult. The dialogue is difficult because these two terms are often very loose. I mean, for example, what is the exact meaning of responsible? Okay, conventionally in social science theory, there has been more sort of an emphasis on something like accountability. Okay, but responsibility that way is a new kind of a term. How does responsibility differ from accountability? In what sense, the actors can be more proactive. Not only limiting to adhering to the existing set of norms, but in order to create a better society, in order to create a better model of innovation, to what extent the actors will be taking risk, okay, to change the norms, is something that has not yet been very clearly explicated, but the potential is there. Similarly, for frugal innovation, while by frugal we quite obviously at times we pay emphasis on how cheap is this, how affordable is this, or something that characterizes thrift. Whereas, if we look at, and that's why I have given you the paper on RRI beyond comfort zone, where we are giving indications that the meaning of frugality can be very different at times from just being cheap or just being affordable. And I listed the key characteristics of a frugal innovator in the very first lecture, where I emphasize that the importance of, for example, experiential knowledge could be one dimension of what is meant by frugality. Now, why is it frugal? Because somebody's understanding of the environment, somebody's knowledge coming out of not only knowing, but knowledge coming out of making is what is giving rise to the idea of such innovations. Okay. Now, if you read the paper, if you read the blog, and probably you can also try and read. I mean, you can pass on that that booklet of my one lecture which has come out as a monograph on the frugal innovation by the small and the marginal. So we have drawn upon some of the understanding that Adam Smith had about the world and the concept of frugality to suggest that frugality can be a kind of a less protocolized way of doing innovation, where innovators, as a human being, the way we take decisions, our intuition, our judgment, and the way our tacit knowledge, influences innovation, can be very important. Now, because of these wide possibilities of these two terms, when we think of establishing a dialogue, we are also often unsure what we mean by that dialogue. Now, of course, some of you, and I know that in the group, there are some people coming from natural sciences, and if you have read the paper that we had circulated, where we tried to understand how even the innovations by, say, the grassroots people can be discussed within the rubric of responsible innovation. But I know that some of you would find it very atrocious, maybe, that, as I was asked on the first day, are the innovation at all, the grassroots innovation type innovations that I talked about? Now, are the innovations at all? Now, when this paper was published, the pandemic had not yet come. Now, I just wanted to update that kind of connection with what was happening during the pandemic, and that was one of the reasons for writing the blog, which I have now forwarded. Now, this is actually to show that, okay, we might be able to look down upon the grassroots innovators, whose innovations, as one of as one comment suggested, are the innovations because of their low scale, because of their not so polished nature, because of their inability to conform to the standards, etc. However, when it comes to some of the innovations that I talked about, we talked about in the blog, we will see that in terms of the pattern and the nature, they are very similar. Now, I'll come to discuss that maybe towards the end. Now, other than that, the disciplinary origins of these two schools of thought have been very different. Whereas for responsible research and innovation, the origin is mostly methodological. Okay, in the sense that how should we develop an innovation to meet the grand, say, societal challenge, maybe, which would also be free from the so-called unintended negative consequences, and therefore there will be more acceptability of that outcome. Okay, so it's mostly coming from the method aspect of how to conduct innovation. Whereas for frugal innovation, it was the end point that was more important. So how do we, not how, but what do we make in order to reach out to this group of people? So, and that legacy, they somehow seem to carry. I mean, in my understanding, frugal innovation has remained a product-centric theory, where the final product is the main focus, not the processes, whereas responsible research and innovation has been more about, the processes and the way they can be developed, etc. A third reason, and which is actually the common piece of the paper that circulated and the blog which has been circulated, is the kind of an overemphasis on the second R in RRI, which is about the research. Now, in my view, and it's a provocative claim, and I would have been happy if Robert was also around today, but I would like to hear from you. I think it is because of this overemphasis on research in an innovation discourse that it is taking the whole RRI to a kind of, as Robert mentioned the other day, a kind of a re-emergence of a triple helix kind of structure, where the formal structures are more important, like the universities, the industry, the regulators, how they can be brought together, what can bring them to a common understanding, etc. What is happening as a result of that? The agents and actors who are not really seen as important from a research point of view are getting marginalized. And this is perhaps the same thing which Robert had mentioned in one of the lectures, that although in European Commission we talk about the so-called quadruple helix model where the society, the civil society actors are playing an important role, in reality we do not find a very prominent role of these actors, maybe other than just identifying the needs of the society. So they are very much welcome insofar as they can articulate what the society wants. But they probably will not be having the similar platform when it comes to understanding their thoughts on how it can be solved. What are the technologies that can be used to solve it? How the technology should be made in order to solve the problem. And that is, in my view, is creating a gulf between the RRI and the frugal innovation, because so what is happening is that the RRI is becoming more sort of attracted towards the formalized structure of research. Of course, you are talking about how to make university research open, how to democratize university research, but the question of how not to only look at the super specializations, but to understand from the practice how things are being done, to make it a component of the RRI kind of a research. Now, of course, this statement, getting empirical justification for this statement could be a very, at times a difficult task, because how do we separate between, the more practitioner's knowledge and the more of, the concept-based, theoretical knowledge. And that's, right now, I cannot offer you a the stricter definition or distinguishing criteria, but I hope once you read the blog, you'll probably be able to appreciate the kind of difference that I am talking about. What does it do? When you make that kind of a formal structure more dominant into the discourse, the problems might come in the form of the legitimization of say evidence. What is the correct nature of evidence? What is the correct way of inquiry? Okay, now we all know that on this front, theory and empirics often do not see much in common. And in empirical world or in the practitioner's world, there are many ways to judge evidences which a completely theoretical world would not often accept as evidence. That happens to scientists. We do not always, our own experience, our own intuition, our own judgment may guide even to make an experiment more efficient. But we cannot probably, write that or follow that when we are only driven by or we are only asked to be governed by a set of protocols, as long as the protocols are in place. Okay, now that's the kind of difference I am willing to consider here. Now, what is happening as a result of that? When we are making such super specialization as the routine or as the norm of the day, we are actually going to confront the situation that Adam Smith had talked about in the so-called 2 V's on division of labor. Now, some of you know Adam Smith, and others, if you don't know Adam Smith, you can just Google him and read the Wikipedia page. He could be seen as one of the most the pioneering thought on the modern post-Enlightenment philosophy, and more so in social science, economics, and technology. So in his view, he referred to this phenomena called division of labor. We all know what it means today, the increasing specialization, that I do my thing, somebody else does his or her thing, and therefore we would both be more productive than if each one of us wanted to do both the things. Okay, to put it in a very oversimplified and blunt manner. Now, of course, Adam Smith first said that while understanding the process of industrialization in Europe, he suggested that this is a very good thing to have, because this is how productivity gains would take place. This is how technological advancement would take place. However, he at one point also criticizes that and says that as a result of division of labor, the laborers are becoming, behaving like, an idiot. In the sense that they will only be performing one or two very simple stuff. And in order to give you an example or an illustration, I can take you back to this movie by Charlie Chaplin called The Modern Times. If you have seen what Charlie Chaplin was doing in that movie, that is, the tightening the screws. That's the only thing he does there. And why does he do so? Because all other things are being taken care of by the so-called philosopher of science, who invents the machine, who develops, everything that is needed from the machine point of view. And labor has no other job to do but to only tighten the screw. Now, this is not something that was evident in the early years of Industrial Revolution, because there, in the words of Adam Smith, innovations were done by, of course, those who are philosophers of science, but also by the makers of machine and the users of machine. Okay, so that's the kind of overlap he saw when he first looked at the role of the labor. With kind of specialization and specialization, there are some specialization who would do research and other specialization would only implement that. Now, that is a structure which is inimical to the growth of frugal innovation, and that is what we wanted to emphasize in the blog article. So here, the separation of tasks between the clinical researcher and the clinical practitioners gets somewhat diluted. Here, the role of a doctor or who prescribe what is a good quality of PPE kits becomes somewhat diluted. Okay, so that kind of a convergence of specialization is something that frugal innovation is perhaps more amenable towards. I'm not saying that frugal innovation discourse is all willing to talk about it, but insofar as their objective is to create an affordable solution through polycentric, interactions, there is much more scope of bringing in such actors into the discussion on frugal innovation, which doesn't seem to be the case in the RRI. And in my view, it's because of the overemphasis on research in their framework. Now, if there are questions, I will come to that, because I expect that this particular provocative statement would raise certain questions, and we have kept 10-15 minutes for that. So no worries, this is my last slide. Now, what we are saying in here, we are basically saying that drawing upon the experiences during the COVID time, where we found that the need for affordable and quick delivery of innovative solution was not only needed in a developing country context, but also in a developed country context. And Europe had also suffered because at one point they didn't have enough hospital beds, they didn't have enough ventilators, they didn't have enough PPE kits. Okay, so really, the so-called frugal solutions started emerging. So, for example, converting hotels to hospitals. Okay, development of home care facilities, making a hospital at home, These are some of the initiatives which can be used as kind of a frugal solution because they are affordable, but they are also something that that seem to work empirically. There is no theoretical basis for that. Okay, and theoretically you would very rarely accept some of these actions in a normal time. But in case of COVID time, there were empirical evidence for a practitioners that these kinds of things can lead to much less kind of a pressure on the formal structure, and therefore it can be helpful for the management of a crisis. Similar examples were found, and we have given some such examples in the blog, where in the southern part of Europe mostly, the PPE kits were developed by informal groups. And the more interesting part is that the PPE kits were not sent to the formal regulatory bodies for approval because they knew that would take a long time. What instead they do, they send these kits to the doctors who will be using them at the actual setting of a hospital. And the moment the doctors agree that this is the so-called the good enough quality, they started distributing those PPE kits directly to those hospitals. Now in Indian setting, this might still be a possibility. Okay, we are used to many such informalities. But in a European setting, this is something that a normal time would never witness, in my view. And following that, quite in similar state, what also happened in that year, and I can give you the exact number of a regulatory exemption, that where the EU stated that for 1 year from the date of the pandemic, no medical device would be compulsorily requiring the EU mark for their distribution across countries. Now, once again, of course, they introduced a few more informal safeguards to judge the qualities of those medical devices. But this is a phenomenal state where the regulatory, the restrictions are being relaxed, or in my word, being informalized to give more space to people who probably would know how to make a good enough quality of such devices, but may not always be able to do things as per the standard protocol. Now, once again, these are the ways by which I think the knowledge of the practitioners were brought into the domain of the discussion on frugal innovation. Whereas all these characteristics would equally qualify to be something called responsible research and innovation, or responsible innovation too. Because if you only look at the basic assumptions which define responsibility in terms of responsiveness, in terms of interaction, participation, in terms of reflexivity. However, we do not find such examples to be used as yet by the scholars of RRI, and that to me is something which is unproductive from the point of view of establishing a dialogue, or from the point of view of enriching the boundaries or the discourses of the responsible research and innovation. Now, I stop here. We still have 15 minutes, and if you have questions and comments, I'll be very happy to discuss with you. Yeah, you can run through. Sorry, I forgot to. Okay, we have Siddharth already raising his hand. Siddharth.
Sir, I have a small doubt, to be precise. The thing is, when you are mentioning that frugality should be incorporated, but it is much more of a viable option when we are on the threshold of things. For example, in pandemic, there was not enough infrastructure, or say, not enough production of the PPE kits, or say ventilators, and that's when the scope of frugality, actually came into existence. But if we are in normal times, say when there is no pandemic, for example, pre-COVID times, there was no need of such infrastructure or no need of such a dialogue. So don't you think it is more of a need-based and more of a
Yeah.
kind of requirement?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Now, I actually, if you have, and I know that you have read the blog, if you read the first two paragraphs, we have actually tried to contextualize it. That, the European system was developed after the Second World War to respond to that kind of a smooth, trouble-free social order. No disruptions, not much interruptions to the kind of standard of living they had been witnessing to, except one oil crisis sometimes in 1970s, etc. However, we actually are of the view that yes, probably we had that kind of a social structure, which gave rise to that kind of a very structured view of doing everything. Okay, that stability was important. However, if we are indeed now facing more frequent such interruptions, like the recession last decade, COVID in this decade, and there are these alarms that maybe COVID-like pandemic would recur in future. If we are transitioning to that kind of era where frequent interruptions such as this would be much more visible, then probably we have to think about the structure which would also be paying more attention to resilience. That is, how quickly I can come back and deal with that, rather than offering such stabilities. So yes, you are right. Okay, the argument is that frugality and such experimentations are needed when environment is rapidly changing. Now, it is maybe a bet if some policymakers can make it that, okay, I know that in the next 20, 30, 40 years, there would not be any such pandemic. So let's again go back to that kind of a life where, the protocol would drive us completely. And a kind of a statement that we had, of course we haven't been able to make that very explicit, is that many other countries probably had managed the pandemic despite their resource scarcity. Managed the pandemic better than Europe in the first phase, probably because they were more open to these ideas of informally opening things up beyond the protocolized, formalized, the structure. Okay. Now, of course, this is a hypothesis, and if I need to establish that, I need more data. But if you look at the first wave, if you look at the first wave in India, if you look at the first wave in, say, even in other Eastern countries, and if you look at the first wave in Europe was much better prepared in the second wave. But the first wave was a disaster, which is not so much of a disaster even in a country like India. Although we didn't have so much of infrastructure, etc., etc. But so that is why our argument is to how to respond to emergencies and what to do if we think that such emergencies would be more frequent. And emergencies meaning, the uncertainties becoming more frequent doesn't mean that every time it will be COVID, because then there is a certainty, then we know how to respond. Right? If it is not so certain, then what should we or how could we respond to such eventualities? And that is where the practitioner's knowledge in dealing with the situation might become more important, because it is at the level of practice where we deal with uncertainties much more, and daily uncertainties much more than at the level of abstractions.
So perhaps to add to that, perhaps I think the protocols should be made less redundant.
Less redundant or rigid?
Because mostly the protocols are much more complex right now to follow and go about it, and if they can be probably eased out a bit, they can be stringent, but then the process can be a bit more easy.
So what exactly is to be done is, of course, the need of new research. I should not be able to just make a guess, but yes, when protocols are the reasons for such rigidities, then of course we have to have a fresh look at how or what constitutes protocol, who are all developed protocols, and how protocols are changed or amended. So, in my view, it leads to a very, kind of a new ways of maybe understanding protocol. At one level, we of course need protocols, okay, but how much? Okay, with what kind of flexibilities? And since this is also an area of research. Even there are scientific journals which publish papers on new protocols. Okay, so protocols are an area of research in itself, and therefore, we need to engage with that research to be able to know how can we make protocols which are more responsive to uncertainties.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Could you please lower your hand, Siddharth? Your electronic hand, I mean.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was wondering, in terms of an alternative framing of responsibility, given the points you're discussing points to a utilitarian framing of thought, I was wondering whether that compares well with the existing consequentialist framing of responsibility in these research and development oriented forms of policy, especially given the possibility of unintended consequences and the idea of anticipatory governance. So, basically the fact that, if we were to frame responsibility using elements on an ongoing basis, in doing so, are we not confronted by things which are in the realm of uncertainty, which are equally valid for consideration in the sense that they need to be anticipated at least or accounted for? And then means like in the frugal innovation context, typically you were to proceed with the innovation with not much by way of anticipation as such. So I was really wondering whether a utilitarian framing would provide a better alternative.
Okay, I don't know what you exactly mean by utilitarian framing, but anticipation is key to any innovation research and innovation governance. Okay, now what might actually be maybe a more appropriate way to frame it I think it takes us to the question of scaling. Question of scale. What is the desirable level of scale of innovation or governance? Now, in frugal innovation, we often say two things. One is that it is about, incrementality, because you probably have already a technology of which you are trying to develop a frugalized version. Although that may not be necessarily true, but that can be one way of looking at it. A second point could be that most of the frugal innovations, or many frugal innovations we generally talk about, are also of low scale. Now, these two factors reduce the uncertainties involved in anticipation. Okay, now whether that should be the rule of the day, and therefore RRI should also be focusing more on such innovations where the changes are not so drastic, not so large scale, is a question that RRI scholars will have to engage with. Okay, but I don't know if that means going to a more utilitarian framework. And that part of your comment, I don't think I have been able to relate much. If you can explain it.
Probably I'll give you the example of the ventilator used for neonatal care. Now, the device made under frugal innovation was aimed at obviating, electricity outages and shortages in villages and rural India. Now, compared to the design implemented for a frugally innovated ventilator for a specific use in a setting which is, marked by resource constraints, is, based on the utility it can offer for the particular context. But the ventilator as such used in, more refined or standardized systems of procurement, there the tendency is to be driven by, whatever possible problems you can face in relation to ventilator use. Like this narrative did come around during the entire year of the pandemic that, ventilators were not usable during the time because of, certain issues in operating them. And that the technology, though advanced, was not exactly usable for the purpose. So in terms of, just being fit for the purpose, as in to just seamlessly go into a particular situation where there are constraints and you have to, sort of frugally innovate, and therefore, your understanding or anticipation of what problems you're likely to face is different from that in a more formal setting, right? In
Of course, we are never saying, nobody is saying that frugal innovation would be applicable everywhere. Okay. If we are talking about neonatal support, maybe the frugal innovation for those ventilators would be very different from frugal innovation that were developed to support COVID patients. And there too, there might be good ones and the bad ones. Okay, but the point is that we take the context specifically. I'm not interested now in giving a specialized support in a super specialty hospital. That's not my context. The context is rather, shall we focus only on those types of innovations? Then we might actually come to confront such a pandemic where we don't have anything to deal with it. Right? Now, what would permit us to keep these flexibilities also in store, where we can think of making such a thing, and who are the people who are best suited to develop such innovations? Okay, I agree with you. I mean, this is not a debate on whether the frugal innovation made for the COVID pandemic should also be found in Apollo in a regular day-to-day activities. Maybe not. Right? But then, innovation is an ongoing process. And it might be possible that by looking at the mechanism of such a frugal innovation, one is able to offer a much more, an affordable version of even that kind of innovations. Right. So it's that takes us to a kind of a very completely different kind of a debate. I mean, we are not interested for the time being there.
But just
Okay,
in terms of the the trade-off between the values, like the three values that you were referring to that are probably more important to frugal innovation, inclusiveness, etc. Now, it would be that within, the trade-off between inclusiveness and another value of frugal innovation may conflict or become the source of some sort of tension in terms of its ability to, actually achieve the goals for which it has been.
Possible, yes. Possible, and therefore we should start talking about the degree of frugality. We should ideally have an indicator of frugality, where we can think of putting weights to different, giving weights to different aspects of an indicator and think of a kind of a composite indicator of what is more frugal than less frugal. That's possible.
Fine, thanks.
And this is, in fact, good that you have pointed it out. This is also a shortcoming of the frugal innovation literature. That frugal innovation until now is talking as if, is discussing as if things are binary. So there is a frugal as opposed to a non-frugal thing, which is not, the real, portrayal of how innovations can be observed in a spectrum. Of course, there are degrees of frugality, but it is our kind of a limitation that we haven't been able to theoretically explain that degrees of frugality. Vairaj writes, I would like to know how you see sustainability issues of frugal innovation. If we look at Professor Robert's lecture and definition, it talks about collective stewardship for sustainability. As FI is linked to the immediate socio-economic conditions of the society, how will these innovations fulfill RRI sustainability goals? Yeah. Well, I of course have no conclusive answer to this question, and I'm supposed not to have that because there are not many studies on sustainability and frugal innovation, etc. But what you characterize as immediate socioeconomic concerns, I would say it's not only about immediate socioeconomic concerns, but it is about the socioeconomic concerns that can be tackled even with a slight maybe moderation of existing materials and resources, for which you may not require a completely different materials and resources. Now, this has two effects, one positive, one negative. The negative effect is if there are unsustainable form of materials which are present around us, we might be using that much more in order to deal with the contingencies. Say, for example, the use of plastics went up by many-fold during the pandemic, partly because of their importance in PPE kits, etc., etc. In that way, it is contributing maybe, negatively towards the question of sustainability. At the same time, however, if we are developing a frugal technology using the already existing materials, it also means less of creating waste, because we are probably be able to repair a technology in order to make it more frugal. And you know that today, the obsolescence of product, the planned obsolescence of product is one thing that contributes to unsustainability in a big way by creating waste, e-waste, etc., etc. Where I would say frugal innovation might, slow down the process of product obsolescence a bit. Right? It's like, donating your smartphone to somebody who is in need of a smartphone to attend schools during the pandemic. Okay, maybe somebody will repair the technology in some way and would make it usable. Otherwise, you would have probably thrown it away. Right? Now, so frugal innovation can have both the indications, depending on what exactly is that the activity you are referring to, and what kind of technologies that we are talking about. If it means that we get locked into a more unsustainable form of technology like plastics because of certain reasons, yes, what you are saying is true. But if it means that we are able to prolong the life of a not so unsustainable technology, then it might have a positive impact on sustainability. Hope it makes sense.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, since there are no other questions, I think my time to say thank you and goodbye. Any question?
Yes, sir. I have. I don't know this is a right question or wrong, but this thought is coming in mind just like that. It is the frugal innovation is not going to be polarize the socio-economic structure, if we can say that. And the frugal innovation is generally consumed by the economically weaker section people or poor people or developing countries people. And when the economic status or social status increase, the people usually buy to that product or innovative product that is reachable to that, or they are affordable to that. After a certain condition, there is a hypothetical situation. If the socio-economic condition has been increased of that particular country, of the people, they stop using the frugal innovative products, or they stop consuming that. Is it so? And what is the use? What is the definition? Where the definition will go? The sustainability and cost effectiveness.
No, it's a very good question. It is very true that the elites of the society look down upon frugality. So you would see, the top-notch scientists, top-notch technocrats, top-notch doctors would say that no, we don't do frugality. Of course, it comes from a very limited meaning and an understanding of the concept of frugality, where it is cheap, etc., etc. Okay, quick fix, the bad connotation of vigor, etc. However, it is also true at the same time that the demand for clay refrigerators. Yes, it is there among the low cost consumers, low income consumers, but it is equally true that the very high consumers are also becoming nowadays more the so-called say natural. They are becoming now more conscious to save energy, and therefore a section, very small section, tiny section of that kind of a group are probably also turning towards frugality. But this is actually, as I said, this is a very tiny fraction of that kind of society, and not good enough to create yet an impact. However, that is where it is also our challenge or responsibility to bring in more nuances to the understanding of frugality. And, Dr. Das might be able to send you a paper that I have written with a friend of mine, Shekhar Jain. And he did some fantastic work there to gather data on how the meaning of frugality has undergone a change in the last 300 years in the Western discourses. And the question of thrift being cheap and affordable is only a creation of the last 100 years. And it's the last 100 years, Europe or America, that has also learned to despise frugality because they wanted to promote consumerism. Okay, high growth, capital intensive product, consumerism, and therefore frugality was looked down upon. But if you go beyond that, 17th, 18th century, frugality was voluntary. Frugality was seen as something which is bold, which is a mark of individuality, etc., etc. So it is perhaps once again necessary that we bring in those multiple concepts of frugality to be able to persuade more and more people to get into frugality. And that will, of course, mean a different kind of inquiry into the research on frugal innovation and frugality, which also we are not doing it currently. But there may be a potential for that kind of a thing.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Yeah. Anything else? Any question? Okay, otherwise, thank you very much. I got very good questions, comments from these discussions, and this will help me also to, keep thinking on this topic and maybe to develop a more interesting research proposal. Thank you very much. Dr. Das, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your very fascinating lecture. And also, we have another lecture. So I'll take 5 minutes break and we'll come again at 4:43. So please join for the next lecture at 4:43. Okay, thank you. Welcome to the second session. In this session, I would like to have some discussion on open science in the context of RRI framework. Can you hear me? Anybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this presentation, that different aspects of open science will be discussed, and you are very welcome to raise any question related to open science and linking of RRI with the open science. Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at the definition, that open science represents a new approach to the scientific process based on cooperative work and new ways of diffusing knowledge by using digital technologies and new collaborative tools. So that is the definition of European Commission. So earlier we used to talk about open access. Now open science is all inclusive concept where access is also part of open science. And OECD defines the open science as to make the primary outputs of publicly funded research results, publications and research data publicly accessible in digital format with no or minimal restriction. So you know about the public funded research results. So public funded research. So when one is having research position in public funded institution, that is also public funded research. And also some students are doing their PhD or postdoctoral work from the scholarship receiving from the government or from the funding agency, that is also called publicly funded research. As well as there are certain funded research from different agencies, like we are having Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, or UGC. They fund research projects, and those are also publicly funded research. So open science is about extending the principles of openness to the whole research cycle, fostering sharing and collaboration as early as possible, thus entailing a systematic change to the way science and research is done. So that is the new concept under development. So since 2010 onwards. So open science is based on open access principles, but it encompasses many other things. So European Commission's having that RRI framework, Responsible Research and Innovation Framework. So that is, they are calling that Europe's ability to respond to societal challenges. So in this framework, they say that responsible research and innovation framework consists of 6 keys: public engagement, gender equality, science education, open science or open access, ethics and governance. So on the first day, Professor Robert Brown discussed about all these 6 keys. So open science is also part of one of the 6 keys. Very recently, that UNESCO Director General Audrey said that open science means taking science outside the scientific community to ensure that it responds to the needs of contemporary societies. So open science could help science unleash its full potential and take up the challenges facing our contemporary society. So open science is very interlinked with the contemporary societies, and which are also we are calling nowadays knowledge societies. So knowledge societies where exchange of ideas are taking place. Open science helps in bringing all the ideas together and also disseminate new ideas to the all the stakeholders. So in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, so someone said that even High Commissioner for Human Rights said that when the benefits of science are managed as a purely commercial product reserved for the wealthy, everyone is harmed. So that means that when all the intellectual properties are captured by wealthy people, so they harm everyone's uh, necessity. So for that, we need to have open science. So to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to ensure open, inclusive, and collaborative science. Reliable information and science need to be accessible to everyone and everywhere. And Chief Scientist of World Health Organization, Dr. Soma Swaminathan, said that science must be allowed to lead the global response to this pandemic. So not only this pandemic, but beyond this pandemic, we also need global response through science. So a pandemic knows no boundaries, neither should science if we want to stop the virus. And through open science, we can help address global challenges such as COVID-19. So we know the COVID-19 stories that whenever we are getting new strains or new version of the virus, so scientists around the world, they shared that the structure of the virus so that all the people who are developing vaccines or medicines for COVID-19, they can use this structure and uh, come out with the solutions. So COVID-19 data sets that disease data sets were made available through open data and through open access means. So there were many research studies conducted during last 2-3 years, and most of the research studies were shared through open access channel. So open science to society. So open science embodies the movement to transform and democratize the entire scientific process. So few days back, Professor Robert Brown also talked about the democratize the entire scientific process through RRI, and open science is also tool for that. Open science allows scientific information, data, and outputs to be more widely accessible and more reliably harnessed with the active engagement of all the stakeholders. Open science can be a true game changer in bringing the science technology innovation gaps between and within countries and fulfilling the human right to science. So open science also helping the bridging the human right. So that access to information or access to knowledge is also part of the human right uh, mandate of the um, United Nations. So open science is also increasingly recognized as a critical SDGs accelerator. So SDGs means that sustainable development goals, and we had some discussion on sustainable development goals yesterday by the Professor Robert Brown. So I won't get to details the SDGs. So open science has several values and also several principles. So values, which are the values that quality and integrity, collective benefit, equity and fairness, and diversity and inclusiveness. So these are the values and principles that transparency, scrutiny, critique, and reproducibility. So in science, if we have reproducibility aspect, so that is good science. So when one scientist is working in one laboratory and doing one experiment, that same experiment should be reproduced in another laboratory setup. So science is based on some certain principles. So if they are applying certain principles and also methodology, then similar result should happen in another laboratory setup. So that is called reproducibility. And many of the publications uh, are retracted because of that aspect of reproducibility was not maintained. So the other scientists or reviewers, they could not reproduce the result, so they rejected the papers, and many of the scientific papers were withdrawn or retracted because of that question of reproducibility. And equality of opportunities. So we're giving equal opportunities to the scientists in global south as well as scientists in north, global north. And also in our own country, we can see that there are very diversity of people. There are gender gaps and gaps in educational aspirations. So through open science, we can bridge the equality of opportunities. Responsibility, respect, and accountability. So responsibility is also part of open science principles. Collaboration, participation, and inclusion, flexibility, and sustainability. So all these are principles of open science. So open science and research are produced by universities and university affiliated laboratories, and these results of the research are now open for everybody, such as companies, researchers, students, and citizens, that common citizens. Also, they are taxpayers, and with the same tax, our research grants are coming at the university, and university is producing new research or new publications. So citizens are very important, particularly taxpayers. So they are very important, and they should seek the that return of investment of taxpayers' money. So there is also narrative that we can how can we shift science from competition to collaboration to solve global challenges. So with open science, so we have different collaboration taking place, particularly in the area of climate change, or biodiversity loss and future pandemics. So to solve global challenges in this area, so we need to share, invest, and collaborate and innovate through open science. We can make this happen with open science.
आपसे क्या कर रहा है आज साइकिल रैली चला निकाल रहा है कब 15 मार्च को ये लोड में वाले चीज इनको मना किसी से कुछ नहीं होता
Noise is coming. Okay. Then how to do equitable science? So we have the diversity like location, nationality, ethnicity, age, gender, income, socioeconomic status.
देखो ये दिखा रहा हूँ ये बहुत अच्छा काम लगा इसके लिए बहुत लोगों ने पैसा दिया है इसके लिए ये मेरे मौसा जी हैं ये जाटा समाज के अध्यक्ष हैं भाई साहब इतना पैसा देखो ये लाइब्रेरी देखो
Sanoj, please mute.
Sanoj, mute yourself.
Okay. So sorry for the disturbance. Now we have equitable science, and for that we have diversity, and so all these criteria of diversity should not stop people from accessing and contributing to open science. to advance in science, and we need equal opportunities for all. And related to transparent science, so nearly 70% of the scientific publications are locked behind paywalls. So what is paywall? So paywall means so there are certain uh, publications which are available only for the subscribers. So non-subscribers cannot have access to all those subscribed resources. Certain journals published by Elsevier which are not available to the non-subscribers. So it is said that nearly 70% of scientific publications are locked behind paywalls. So many of the multinational publishers, so they are creating the paywalls, and that they are not providing access to scholarly resources to the scientists in the global south. So there is also one portal called Sci-Hub, and there were legal cases pending in different countries, but particularly in India against Sci-Hub, and those cases were filed by different multinational publishing houses. So they are opposing to Sci-Hub because Sci-Hub is republishing all the published papers which are available or behind the paywalls. So to allow the free flow of research data and ideas, the newly adopted UNESCO recommendation on open science sets a path for bridging the knowledge and technology gaps between countries. So recently, very recently in November 2021, UNESCO come up with UNESCO recommendation on open science, and it incorporates all the principles of responsible research and innovation, as well as open science other principles. So they come out with this recommendation on open science. And did you know that 193 member states of UNESCO have adopted the recommendation on open science, a work that paves the way to the science we need for the future we want. So India is also one of the member states which adopted a UNESCO recommendation on open science. So why we need open access to scientific peer-reviewed publications? So open access is good for science. It allows scientists to build on previous research results and avoid unnecessary duplication of effort. It improves quality and greater efficiency. And open science also good for the economy. It speeds up innovation, and it faster progress to market. And open science also good for society. It makes research available to individual citizens and to non-profit organizations, and it brings greater transparency. So open access or open science is good for the for science, good for the economy, and good for society. So open science represents an approach to research that is collaborative, transparent, and accessible. A wide range of activities comes under the umbrella of open science, including open access publishing, open data, open notebook, open peer review, and open education. So you know about open access publishing. Now open data. So open data is research data. Whenever we are doing any research work and we are generating some research data, and we can publish those research data in data repositories. So there are many repositories in the at the national level or subject wise data repository, and we can deposit research data on those repositories. and open notebook. Open notebook is concept of a laboratory notebook. So all the laboratory experiments are recorded on the notebook. So maybe some logbooks are also part of the notebook. So open notebook is also very important for the scientists doing field research or laboratory based research. Open peer review. Open peer review means we are having that blind peer review where one author is submitting article to any journal and they send for peer review. And that is sometimes called blind peer review because reviewers doesn't know who is the author and author doesn't know who is the peer reviewer. But in open peer review system, author as well as reviewer both can see that work of each other, that comments from the reviewers and also author's response. So they both can interact on open peer review platform. And open education, so we know about open education resources, like we are having different resources, NROER, that is for the NCERT textbooks or other textbooks, and also GIAN course, that is self-learning materials produced by different open universities like IGNOU and other Indian open universities, and those are being archived on the GIAN course portal. And also we are having one Sodh Ganga, that is for thesis and dissertation. So also those are that outcome of the doctoral work or pre-doctoral work like MPhil or MTech. So all the dissertations and theses are made available through Sodh Ganga. So all these are part of open science. So we also see that there are many key concepts of open science, like open methods, that is methods to be adopted across the laboratories, and we see these are the components of open science: open access, open data, open peer review, and citizen science. That is also part of open science nowadays, and it involves citizen in the world of science. So some of the citizens science projects can be that sky watching, or maybe bird watching, or maybe other aspects of taking notes at the ground level, like monitoring of environmental parameters or pollution parameters at the very local level. That also be part of the citizen science activity. And sometimes we call free courses open for all interested, but not all MOOCs are open. Like Swayam is a platform from Ministry of Education, and you can have some enrollment on Swayam, and based on the enrollment you can participate in the online courses, but not all courses are free. Some of the courses are free, and other than enrollment you cannot access those materials. So not all MOOCs are open, but some MOOCs are open, or that outcome of the MOOCs, that is open educational materials, are open by many universities like MIT. They have very good open courseware portal, and many international and researchers and students, they visit those open courseware portals to download or read some of the excellent research or educational materials. So we see this is the new parameters. They have included more elements in the open science, and crowdfunding, open labs, or open infrastructure, open source, and open hardware. These are the new elements which are being considered as part of the open science. So you know about the open labs. So there is one portal developed by IIT Madras. They are telling that people who are from the industry or from the individual or independent researchers, they can collaborate with that instruments which are available in public funded research institutions. So when you are not affiliated to any university or a laboratory, still you can have access to laboratory facilities through that portal. I'll come details about that portal, which offers open labs, and also some virtual labs are also there through one Ministry of Education supported program, ICT Enable Education Program. So virtual labs are created and you can do the experiment virtually. So similarly, we are having open infrastructure. So like National Knowledge Commission recommended National Knowledge Network. So this is kind of open infrastructure where many people can join and also interact with the scientific community. And open innovation also kind of innovation, which is part of the responsibility research and innovation framework. So this is the flowchart. When we do research, we should have some kind of dissemination plan as well as data management plan. And whenever we are having some outcome, which is called research results, and research results are disseminated, decision to disseminate or share to be taken at the outcomes level. So whether decision to publish or decision to exploit or protect through intellectual property rights, so that two kind of decisions you need to take. Some noise is still coming. So when we take the decision to disseminate or share, we follow through publications, that is gold open access and green open access. What is gold open access? Gold open access means publishing through journal articles. And green open access is preprint or postprint publishing on institutional repository or subject level repository, subject specific repository, that is called green open access. And sometimes we call platinum open access, that is also publishing through journals. And platinum means there is no article processing charge at the publishers level, like CSIR journals. We have around 12 journals publishing from CSIR laboratories. So those are not having any article processing charge, but those are open access journals and we can call them platinum open access. But some gold open access journals, they are having some article processing charge, maybe few $100 to 5,000 US dollar. So it varies. So like Nature Communication, eLife or PLOS journals, so gold open access journals, and they are having very high publishing charges. That is also called article processing charge. But green open access, you don't have to pay anything, but you can self-archive your preprints or published version on green open access repositories. Some repositories are having at the institutional level, we are calling it institutional repository, and some are having at the subject level, we call it subject specific repository. And depositing research data. So we have two kind of access. One is access and use free of charge, and another one is restricted access and or use. So these two kinds of research data repositories are available, and many of the researchers, they need to deposit their research data before publishing in scientific journals. So backup research data should be archived first, then they go for publishing. And for that purpose, we need to have research data management plan before the execution of any research project. And for the decision to exploit or protect our research outcomes in the form of patenting or any other form of protection. So this option is also there for the researchers to exploit their research findings for the any economic incentives. So we see that how to achieve open access in Horizon 2020 RRI framework. So many of the RRI related research projects are part of the Horizon 2020 research program of European Commission. So there are self-archiving option and open access publishing option. Self-archiving option is called Green Open Access, and open access publishing option is called Gold Open Access, and publish in open access journals or hybrid journals. So we also see that there are many hybrid journals, that is paywall journal, but they are also publishing open access articles. So some of the articles are open and some of the articles are you have to subscribe to the journal so that you can see the download the articles, full text articles. So both options are possible. If the gold route is chosen, the article must also be deposited in a repository to comply. So whenever you publish in gold open access, then also you have to publish on open access repository. So all the beneficiaries of European Union funded projects, they must deposit a machine readable copy in a repository of their choice. Must ensure open access at the latest within 6 to 12 months. Must ensure open access to the bibliographic metadata, and are encouraged to deposit the underlying data, that is backend data of research data, and are encouraged to retain their copyright. So these are the options available for the internationally collaborative research. Many of the internationally collaborative research are also being published by ICSSR or DST. They are also seeking proposals from the researchers in India, and they are also having some other country collaborators like France or Germany, or maybe from the global south, any country like Brazil or UAE. So whenever we are having internationally collaborative research projects, and there are norms of open access to scientific publications. So all peer-reviewed scientific publications go either gold or green ways, but are deposited also in case of open access publishing, have their article processing charge eligible during the grant. So whenever they're writing the grant proposal, so they must include that article processing charge in the budget. So that is the norm for European Union, many other international collaborative research projects. So we see that we have very strong open access movement across the world. So the many advantages of open access movement include greater availability and accessibility of publicly funded scientific research outputs, possibility for rigorous peer-reviewed processes, greater reproducibility and transparency of scientific works, and greater impact of scientific research. So there is one portal called Global Open Access Portal, which is maintained by UNESCO, and they highlighted these advantages of open science movement. So this is a beta version of Global Open Access Portal. We can see that country-wise policy documents, open access to information policy. So we have around 18 policy documents for open access to information. And many policy documents related to open data, open research data from India. And there is also a registry of open access repository mandates and policies, where all the mandates of different agencies around the world are made available in single platform, which is called roadmap or registry of open access repository mandates and policies, where you can also see that policies or mandates from India or any other country. So there are 18 mandates of policies from India, and many of them are institutional policy, not the national level policy, but few of them are national level policies like ICAR, CSIR, CGIAR. So all these are national level policy are made available through roadmap. So we are having different open access resources, open access repositories, open access journals. So where we can search the contents of all this open access publishing. So there is one website called core.ac.uk. It offers seamless access to millions of open access research papers, enrich the collected data for text mining, and provide unique services to the research community. So it is a global aggregator. So they have global network of open access repositories and journals, and they harmonize data access. They provide seamless access to content and data through their unique APIs and data sets. APIs means, so there is one interface, application programming interface, where you can talk to metadata and you can download the metadata using APIs. And they offer very powerful services, like they create powerful services for researchers, universities and industry, and they also offer cutting edge solutions that they research and develop innovative data driven AI solutions. So this is the portal. They're offering so many things for the benefits of the researchers, not only from the global south, not also for the global north researchers. And it is from UK. This site is developed in the UK. So we also have different national initiatives, like we are having one Open Access India, that is Indian Civil Society actor for open science movement, and they also had one Delhi Declaration on Open Access in 2018, and recently they launched India Archive, that is in line of archive.org for self-archiving your preprint articles or preprint research data. So India Archive, they recently launched, and they are also having another preprint archive, which is Agri Archive. So agriculture related information archive. So one can submit that preprint papers, that is before publishing in any journal, that is called preprint, and you can have some kind of interaction with the scientific community with preprint articles, and you can share with other researchers in your network, and they can comment on the preprint article, and based on their comments, you can further develop the article or submitting any submitting to any research journals. So preprint servers are there, like archive.org, that is for many scientific disciplines like physics, chemistry, mathematics, and it is available since 1991. So that is the first kind of preprint archive available across the world. So that was launched in 1991. Advocacy for open science, some recent success stories. In 2011, Sodh-Ganga, a reservoir of Indian thesis, was launched by InfluNet Center, that is under UGC, to serve the mandates of the UGC notifications, minimum standards and procedure for award of MPhil PhD degree regulations 2009, dated 1st June 2009. And this Sodh-Ganga helps in facilitating open access to Indian thesis and dissertations for global dissemination to the worldwide academic community. Like GIAN is one of the major contributor to Sodh-Ganga, because GIAN is one very known research university where many research theses are made available through Sodh-Ganga. In December 2014, Department of Biotechnology and Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, had jointly adopted the DST-DBT open access policy. So way back in 2014. So it is 8th year. In March 2015, UNESCO and SEMCA. So SEMCA is one organization under Commonwealth of Learning. SEMCA is located in Delhi. UNESCO and SEMCA jointly launched one open access curriculum for researchers and open access curriculum for library schools. And very recently, in December 2020, DST released a draft 5th National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy, also called 5th STIP, for public consultation, where the first chapter is dedicated to open science. So they have many provisions of open science in the first chapter. So there is one sciencecentral.in website, which is also a portal helping to produce open science materials. Open Archive IR Harvester for DST and DBT. So Science Central mainly caters to institutions under DST and DBT under Ministry of Science and Technology. So UNESCO Open Access curriculum for researchers and UNESCO Open Access curriculum for library schools. So 9 modules of the curricula are available freely, and this can be downloaded from UNESCO website. The way forward, so science, develop open science mandates and open access to scientific publication channels for the public funded research in the line of EU, because EU promoted responsible research and innovation framework, and they are having some mandates of open access publishing for the public funded research or EU funded research. So in India also we need to have, or any other countries in the global south, we need to have similar mandates in line of EU. Need to sensitization and awareness raising of researchers in the line of RRI framework. So you know that there is one UGC curriculum on for the PhD scholars, PhD students. So they are also taking interest in open science and open access, and they are teaching the PhD students. In JNU also, our Central Library are organizing different workshops on open access publishing and scientific principles and ethical principles. Proposed in the draft of 5th STIP. So we're going to have this kind of infrastructure in India if 5th STIP, which is drafted, is adopted. Indian Science and Technology Archive of Research, INSTA, National STI Observatory, a central repository of all kinds of data related to and generated from the STI ecosystem. STI means science, technology, and innovation. So it will provide data and metadata related to STI ecosystem. Open data policy for publicly funded research. So 5th STIP also ensuring research data will be available to everyone, that is larger scientific community and public. Public means common citizens and also taxpayers under fair terms. So what is fair terms? Findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So these are the fair terms. So one research data set should be findable and also accessible or interoperable and reusable. So interoperable means that one can reuse the research data in different platforms. Like you are having Excel platform, also you are having open office software, Excel software as an open office software. So data should be available for the both the software platform. So similarly, the data should be interoperable and retrievable from different platforms and reusable. So whenever we're depositing one data sets on data repository, those data sets can be reused by other researchers. So you cannot claim that they are stealing my data sets. So that is not the norm, because you are allowing them to reuse the data, because you are getting public funded research projects and you are supposed to disclose the research data sets to the public. And if that research data sets are uploaded on any data repository, any end user can download and reuse the data, and one cannot claim that somebody is stealing my data. So that is the norm. And this is the end of my presentation. So if you are having any questions, any comments on my presentation, you are welcome to make.
Can I make an observation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very detailed presentation on open science and the dimensions. So I have actually used a new background, but it's not. I don't know how to change it now. Maybe I'll do it later. No, just to provoke a discussion on open review. Uh, During the pandemic, there were many open archives which have now come up. And in these archives, papers are put to this archive not as working paper, but they are called pre-published papers. And they are archived before their publication while being reviewed, or they're being reviewed while kept at the archive. And we sometimes wanted to draw a parallel between this and frugality in research, because by putting it in such open archives and allowing everybody to comment on it, it actually goes now to the people who are not strictly specialized in the job also to be able to comment on these papers. So we were, from a frugality point of view, we were trying to understand whether this is something which can be called as, frugalizing the review process, where, or giving more opportunity to people who are not recognized experts to also be able to give comments, and who these people would be. Just a thought, because this was something that, from a frugal point of view, also have sort of tried to analyze. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, particularly in the area of biomedical sciences, we see many papers are published on e-print servers like bioarchive or medRxiv, and those are being reviewed by the other researchers, and they're providing their comments or suggestions for the improvement of the manuscripts. So that is welcome move, and also we're getting that hearing about that the data makeup or data manipulation in the e-print papers. so so some of the papers are not very good, and some of the papers are very good and well documented with the research data. Yeah, Prakash Rao, so you raised your hand. So do you have any comment or?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening,
Yeah,
sir.
good
I am
evening.
Prakash Rao, sir, pursuing PhD from School of Computer Science.
Okay.
And also, I am assistant professor working in Netaji Subhash Institute Technology.
Okay.
Computer Science Department, sir.
Okay.
So I have two questions, sir. Sir, if you download as a researcher, and we are using them as references, and we submitted that paper for publication, is it ethical? That is my first question, sir. And my second question is, by paying article process fees through gold open access, if I am not wrong, if we paper are published, is it acceptable in cash promotions? These are my two questions, sir. I think I made my point. Is it clear, sir?
Yeah, first question I could not hear because of some network issue. Can you please repeat the first question?
Okay, sir. Sorry for that. My first question is, if you as a researcher, download some papers from SciHub.
Okay.
And we are using those papers as a reference for our papers, and we publish that paper for publication. Is it ethical? Should we we refrain ourselves from downloading from SciHub? Because
actually, you have different channels. Not only SciHub, may also you can download from academia or research gates. So that wherever you are publishing, they won't question you where you got the got the
Because
publication. So that
in
is
your
your
present,
concern. Yeah,
sorry,
you may
sir.
purchase it. You may purchase it also. So there is no question. So whatever you are using, so nobody can question what the publication. Publishing
Why I raised this question, sir? Because during your presentation, you mentioned that so many legal actions are happening over against Sci-Hub. So as of today, should we
So
refrain
actually,
downloading from?
no. Actually, you are the end user. You are not creating Sci-Hub. So there is no
Yes, sir.
question of legal action against you. So whoever is creating the platform for the illegally uh, communicating, that is pay world papers, so they may have some legal consequences, but you are the end user, so you can get the research papers from the authors or from academia or uh, any other institutions who are subscribing to that journal, maybe not your institution but your colleagues institutions. you
Yes,
can
sir. Yes.
you can get the full text of the paper. So uh, there is no question of any problem uh, because of you are downloading from the SciHub.
Thank you, sir. My second question, sir. See, there is IEEE access, which charges around $880 for article process fees. So if we publish in IEEE access, will that paper will be eligible for CAS promotion? That is my second question, sir. If not that, any other.
Actually, for cash promotion, that main question is not open access or not open access or article processing charge is there or not. Main question is whether it is indexed with like yeah, Scopus or Web of Science or UGC care list. So whether you should know that whether this journal is indexed with that Scopus or Web of Science or UGC care list. That is the main thing. And
Yes, sir.
publishing is different aspect. So whether you are paying some amount for the open access publishing, so that is different aspect because it doesn't have any implication on your cash promotion.
Because in our university recently for CAS promotions, they are asking the faculty whether your papers you paid any article processing fees or not.
That is for the curiosity of the panelist.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think there is any repercussion of if you are paying any article processing. For
I will
publishing
ask one more question, sir. If you permit,
IEEE journal.
one more question, sir, if you permit.
Yeah.
Sir, if you permit, one more question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, the green access, gold access, green access means we are not paying any processing fees. That does it mean?
No, actually, green access is that is if your institution having any institutional repository, you can self-archive your article. If your institution they don't have repository, you can go for national level repository like government of India is also promoting in new repository which I just mentioned. So many other subject specific repositories are also there. You can upload your paper based on the there are some embargo period for the publications. If that is already open access article, then you can self archive after the publishing. And if there is any PA World article, then you have to wait 6 months or 12 months based on publisher's policy. So you can see there is a portal where publisher's policies are given, mentioned. So you can search those portal and you can search for the publisher's policy. And most of the publishers, they allow self-archiving of research articles or the to the institutional repository or subjects repository. So
Thank you, sir.
that
I
is
would like to extend my
green
appreciation.
option. Yeah, that is green option. Okay, any other question?
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Hello,
Any
good
other
evening, sir.
question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I am Jitamitra Höhere, a research scholar. Sir, I have a query that earlier I used to thought that the journal which are not good, such kind of journal used to take the fee, but the good journal are also taking the fee. So what is the reason behind the taking the fee? Is it for that reviewing charges? Then if they are taking the fee for reviewing charges, then why the other journal are not they are not taking a fee for reviewing processes? So what is the reason behind that?
Okay, so that is very good questions, and most of the publishers, they don't pay to the reviewers. um, those are the commercial interest of the publishers. So they exploit the situation of the researchers or authors. So they charge heavily in the name of publishing and maintaining their own journal site. So they are charging for journal sites maintenance and also for the page editing, page making using a software, and they have different other people to pay, like editorial people, not the reviewer. They don't pay reviewer, but they may pay to the uh, index editor or that which is called publishing editor, or they have many kind of editors at their payroll. So they pay to them. So that's why they are charging from the authors. Like if you are publishing in CSIR journals, all the CSIR journals are having editors from their scientist pool. So all the scientists are employed in CSIR institutions are involved in the publishing scientific journals. So in CSIR setup. So that's why they are not charging from the authors, because they are already getting paid from the public fund, that is from the government. So, but whenever you are publishing with the private publisher, so they are paying different people like editors and other people from the article processing charges, which an author is giving to the publisher. So I think that is the ecosystem of publishing, and particularly for the multinational publishers, they get huge profit from the publishing in open access journals.
Thank you so much, sir. Is there any advantage is there any advantage for the author to preferring that paid journal than that unpaid journal? Means speed processing kind of advantage is there or not?
No, actually, prestige of the journal may be varied, and if journal has high impact and indexed with Web of Science or Scopus, so I think these are the requirement for the promotion also. So if they are maintaining any Scopus index journals, then that's why they are charging. Or if they are maintaining Web of Science index journal, that's why they are charging. And we are having advantage of good readers, good number of readers, because those are already established journals, not the new journals. But you can contest the article processing charge. So there may be some different perspective of article processing charges because of we are from global south or developing countries, so we cannot pay few $1,000 as article processing charge. So you can negotiate with the publishers, or you can ask our university librarians whether they have some tie-up with the this journal publishers, and they can offer any discount for the APC charges. So that is nowadays happening in many countries, particularly in Europe. Many of the institutions are members of uh, publishing consortia, so they are getting some discounted price for the article processing charge. And similar way, in India also different institutions are having some corpus for the article processing charges, and you can make use of that. But those journals should be of good repute and also indexed with good database like Web of Science or Scopus.
Thank you so much, sir. Really, it was a very good session.
Okay. Any other questions or observation?
I'd just like to clarify one thing for the benefit of the audience, that in all those cases where legal action has been taken, it is not against the academic use of the document, as in the article or the report or the research work. It's primarily by publishers against the distributor of the in the Delhi University case, which National Law School defended. It was actually about a particular photocopy shop in the law faculty of Delhi University, which had this habit of uh, taking copyrighted materials and distributing them through photocopies. So that was commercial use, which was tried to be sort of controlled or regulated. But as such, academic use is exempted under the Copyright Act for all practical purposes, including research. So academicians who use research are not exposed to any kind of legal liability. It's just, the distributors or those people who sell it for a cost, they are subject to that kind of action. So that's one thing. Other than that, I would possibly be curious to know what are the barriers to, the adoption of open access, specifically other than the infrastructural barriers, for which you are outlining the efforts which have taken place. Are there any other forms of barriers which are, becoming more and more relevant or prominent?
One thing is a mindset. I think many of the researchers having mindset to not publishing open access journals, not publishing with open access, because their papers would be read by many people. That kind of mindset is also still there. And if you want to have more readers, you can go for open access publishing. And also some people are having that barrier of having any article processing charge, because many of the institutions, they don't have any policy of open access article processing charges. So authors have to pay from their own pockets, and that is not most of the times not affordable for all of us. So institutions should have some policy of that providing support for the open access publishing in the form of article processing charge. So maybe they can reimburse 100% or some other percentage of the open access charges to the authors, because institutions are also getting benefited for publishing. So you know that there is NIRF ranking, and some of the ranking parameters are based on publications. So whenever you are publishing in Scopus Index or Web of Science Index journals, and if you are having good number, then ranking of one institutions will go up. So that's why universities or education institutions also should support the cause of open access publishing. And also there are some barriers in the form of promotion. So some of the panelists in the promotion panel, they're old pattern. They don't like publishing in open access journals. I don't know the reason, because they still ask whether you have published in open access journals or not. But most of the old journals are having open access platform also, like Current Science or Indian Journal of Physics. So all these journals are publishing for around 80 to 100 years, and they have converted to open access platform. So I think if journals can be having open access platform, why not our panelists in the promotional panels? So individual careers advancement should not be any should not have any problem when they are publishing in open access journals. So these are the barriers I know about that, and there are maybe some other economic or non-economic barriers are there, also there. So we can discuss about this in next presentation in the next week.
Right. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Sir, I want to add something why people are resist to publish in the open access journal, because the huge emerge of predatory journals. They are main reason to that. They are spamming the emails, or journals are emerging in India or developing countries. So they thought that the valid not availability of valid impact factor of that particular journal, or if the new journal come into any discipline, it takes time to get the impact factor of a considerable form. So sometimes the researcher hesitate to publish their articles. And most important impact factor, which is indexed by Scopus or Web of Science, that attract the researchers to publish their paper, and APIs to score good APIs for their promotion, like that.
Yeah, that is very good observation. I support your point. And also, yeah, these are the concern that new. So actually, we are having many journals from India, and not they are not visible across the world, only because they are not having very good website, or not having that publishing pattern in regular manner. Like there are some irregularities in publishing. So some issues are published in on time, and some issues are lagging behind. So these are the barriers in publishing academic journals from India. And also there are certain people there without any subject knowledge. They are also opening up new journals, and they are recruiting non-expert as journal editor. So that also giving bad name to the Indian journals. But majority of the journals are having the problem with the continuity. So many of the journals in different subject areas could not sustain because of lack of commitment. So these issues need to be addressed. And also that what Madhuri said about the new journals. So commitments should be there, and they should have very good editorial board members and also good people in the editorial board, particularly editors, and that editor in chief or editors should be of reputed person, and they should taking forward the journal with their name, because if they support the journal, then journal will get good articles, and then journal can flourish further. So that's my point, and also thank you for all your observations. Any new questions, any new observation from you, from the audience? So I think we don't have any more question. So I should stop my presentation, my discussion here, and thank you all for joining us today's sessions. And we had very fruitful discussions in 2 sessions, and I would like to see you on Monday. There is no class on Sunday, so all are invited to join on Monday 3:30 p.m. Thank you all, and goodbye.